Shaggy is one of the most interesting characters in Scooby-Doo, and with his newfound power, I wanted to see if he could take on the horrors of the Commonwealth. Which brings me to today's question. Can you beat Maxwell's World, the Grantchester Mystery Mansion, and Far Harbor as Shaggy? The rules originally were to keep Scooby with me at all times, but as you'll see through the video, Scooby-Doo does not like to be near Shaggy most of the time. And originally this was a complete pacifist run, but you guys wanted to see some, dare I say, spicy moments. So expect a slight Mick Gordon fueled outburst later on. But without further ado, let's see how the run went. As always, we start by making the coolest dude around the Commonwealth, and then we set the stats. For Shaggy, strength and perception were left at 1, but his endurance was the first stat to be bumped up to 10. In every episode I can think of and that I watched for this video, Shaggy is rolling around, being thrown about, or just crashing into stuff. He may not be that big, but his ability to take pain is unmatched. Charisma I put up to 2 as he's a likable character, but this is as high as I could make it with what I had. Intelligence was left at 1 because Velma does most of the thinking. And agility was the second stat to hit 10 because Shaggy might as well have springs in his legs, and luck came up to a 3 as with all of the hijinks Shaggy gets into, he survived quite a bit for a young age. However, our dynamic duo of man and dog is nothing without his faithful companion. However, this was way harder than I thought it would be. So, first thing you have to do if you want a different dog breed is you have to go buy a pack from the Creation Club. But that's not enough because all the Creation Club does is it adds different breeds to the wild for you to recruit to your settlement. So instead, you have to go install a mod to allow them to be your companion. Except that mod piggybacks off another mod that you have to install, and once you've done that, you still need to rename your new pup or friend. And the Creation Club gives you options, but let's just say they're trash. So now to rename your dog, you need to install yet another mod, but that mod is a plugin for the Fallout 4 script extender. So you need some kind of unzip program, and then have to boot the game up with the script extender application. But then you go to rename your dog, and you can't. So you have to override that, and finally, after an hour of modding, you can finally name your dog Scooby-Doo. The game will let you name your companion Joey, Concord, and literal trash, but not Scooby. 10 out of 10, best game. So now that our favorite duo had been reunited against Todd Howard's wishes, hijinks could now commence. However, before anything scary could happen, where's the first place Scooby and Shaggy would stop in an apocalypse? That's right, a diner. But while they were eating away, a woman came onto the radio. A woman named Gail was calling for help and promised food and money to whoever could help. And of course, at the mention of food and money to buy more food, Shaggy and Scooby ran to check it out. Inside a bunker, they got the scoop. Gail's sister had gone missing in an amusement park. But that didn't sound like a bad thing. I mean, people get lost in amusement parks all the time. This sounded more like a vacation where they got to eat. Of course they took the job. But now to get there, Gail told them of 3 ways. A ghost bus, an underground tram, or to walk there. At the sound of ghosts, Shaggy noped out of that option, and walking sounded like too much hard work, so off they went to board the tram. But for being an old world system, it seemed very active. Trams were flying past everywhere, and this place seemed almost maze-like. But the worst part were the ticket checkers. Why are there so many ticket checkers here? So with 2 options written off, walking seemed like the safest option. Except things quickly took a turn for the worst. What should have been a walk on a highway turned into a parkour session where drops went on for eternity, and if Shaggy stayed too long, he got zapped by electricity. What kind of amusement park were they heading to? But with enough jumping and dodging strikes from the sky, Shaggy saw the sign. Welcome to Maxwell's World. Now, inside the theme park, fog covered the floor and Shaggy had to creep his way past all of the trapped denizens, except he soon came across some strugglers fighting off a horde of ghoulish apparitions. So of course the first order of business was to hide behind them. After the ghosts had been dealt with, everyone met inside the spook house and Shaggy and Scooby were given the rundown.
There's a very logical explanation explanation for all this.
Quick, tell me.
The place is haunted.
But not like Old Man Jenkins telling kids to piss off. It was more like trapped here for eternity while spooky beings tried to steal your lunch money. However, these two did know a couple of tricks to try and get the hell out of the park. And as the second order of business, both Shaggy, Scooby, and Paladin Wallace would go restart a generator. But as soon as they walked outside, they got greeted by the loudest music you've ever heard and some discount Walt Disney whispering about whatever. Shaggy couldn't hear him anyway, but just as quickly as they came, they disappeared from sight again. Back on the road, Shaggy got to see what happens to a clown when it's introduced to a crazy guy in power armor holding a spicy potato launcher, and also learned that alarms mean it's time to get shanked. Making it to the generator room, Paladin Wallace put down more clowns as Shaggy flipped a couple of switches. Some off-screen monster of doom yelled at them, and then a spooky janitor showed up to open a door leading them to safety.
Did you see what I saw?
Yeah, we saw it, and we're going back to find out what it was.
Meeting back up with the homies, Discount Walt Disney arrived again and said he had a special surprise waiting for them. What do you think it could be? More ghoul clowns? More spooky ghosts? How about a carousel trying to spit acid on you?
Well, like if I had a face like that, I'd moan too.
Luckily, Paladin Wallace is a professional at taking down scary monsters, and soon it was nothing more than a pile of burnt metal. With the carousel of doom taken care of, the spooky janitor showed up and escorted Shaggy back to the headquarters. It was time to find a way out of this theme park. There weren't enough Scooby snacks in the world to keep Shaggy here, but it wasn't going to be a walk in the park either. Turns out there were 3 things that had to be sorted. One involved turning off a water pump inside a water ride, but with getting lost way more than Shaggy thought was humanly possible, further inside, all the Scooby snacks he had in his entire life had finally kicked in. But instead of this being a wild or scary trip, this was actually pretty calming. There's something weird about the vastness of space that's both calming and scary as hell at the same time. I mean, it could be the giant head-like statues spitting flames, but I'm not here to judge. However, none of this was as scary as the final boss. But not in the way you think it would be. See, the final boss is actually extremely easy once you understand what you have to do. All you have to do is flip 3 switches and then shoot a generator on top of the main head. Seems simple enough, right? That would be the case if you had a gun. Now, luckily Shaggy has an upward vertical leap of like 12 feet, so getting up to the platform is fine. On top of that, even though the door was supposed to close, because the mod never intended for anyone to ever get up here, the door just stayed open and acted like a normal door. And then all that Shaggy had to do was punch the generator, causing it to explode. The problem is, this broke the mod for me. What's supposed to happen is the quest log is supposed to update, giving you the completion, and then you go on your way to complete the 2 other parts of the ending. However, it never completed the quest. I was stuck going through an infinite loop of doors that all came back to the same location, and as dumb as this sounds, the solution to all of this is even more so. Because all I had to do to get the quest to work was have Shaggy talk to his companion and initiate the dialogue for them to follow him, even though they were already with him. But for whatever reason, that tricked the quest into completing, and the run could continue. With the water pump shut down forever, now it was time to go nab a supervisor's keycard to make it into the final building. However, deep in the depths of a roller coaster, Shaggy thought to himself that this part almost seemed too easy. And almost as if the Bethesda overlords were listening, the remains of the roller coaster came to life and did nothing. I think the enemy may have just been too big for the area, and so it kind of just got stuck in the rocks, because literally Paladin Wallace just shot at it and got almost no reaction whatsoever. But with the creature's demise, the supervisor keycard was in their possession. Now, with only one more obstacle between them and an escape, Shaggy and Wallace made their way over to a hologram theater. The door was locked, but Shaggy's been able to get through locked doors before.
Now, I must have absolute quiet while I work.
Inside, Shaggy had to chase after a red hologram or be attacked by another lightning strike, but this went a lot easier than expected, like it only had to happen like 2 or 3 times. After meeting back up with the homies, it was time to make their escape. After navigating through a series of doors with an alternate reality of an office building run by flamingos, Shaggy and the gang arrived at the final confrontation. Paladin Wallace and the spooky janitor joined him, only for Discount Walt Disney to show up with a minigun. Thankfully, between Wallace and Stout fighting on the behalf of Shaggy, all he had to do was hide behind the giant suit of armor until the shooting stopped, or run from the hordes of cane men trying to take his food. With the fight over, Shaggy was stopped by the ghost of Maxwell, who told him that this was all in his head. There was no Gale asking for her sister to be saved. Hell, there were no wacky adventures and no companions following him around. He had conjured up this entire thing by exerting a mere 0.2% of his power. But if this was all just a hoax, and this whole thing was in his head, who were these guys? After the events of Maxwell's World, Shaggy stayed in Diamond City to recoup from his brain running rampant and creating realities. But when it comes to investigating spooky houses, a bribe is always enough to get him going.
Oh, we don't go near any place with spooky, haunted, forbidden, or creepy in the name.
We pay you a fee of 10,000 American dollars.
Yeah, it's just materialism's not really our bag, man.
We can provide you with free airfare,
No thanks.
room and board,
No thanks.
and all you can eat.
Now, Shaggy is no stranger to spooky houses, and sure, this had all the bells and whistles. But Shaggy had never been in a spooky house that told you the lore of the building before. It's like a morbid museum at that point. Maybe this job wouldn't be so hard. Except the wall of fire and a robot armed with a minigun definitely took the cake for the weirdest thing he's seen in a house before. Now, normally if you have guns, this would have been a pushover, but Shaggy isn't exactly known for pulling out the MAC-10 during a slight inconvenience. The only hope Shaggy had was luring the robot through the wall of fire and short-circuiting it, only to walk into the next room and run into more killer robots. What kind of house was this? But nothing could have compared him to the utter bullshit that was coming up. Besides being set on fire and chasing a tiny girl, Shaggy came face to face with the Intestine Ripper 3000. And when trying to run away, Shaggy found out what the color of 13 grenades going off at the same time looked like. This place was a death trap, and after being absolutely abused by mechanical menaces, Shaggy eventually found the main culprit, a gunner who had taken up refuge, luring in passerbys. Only issue is, he also wasn't willing to allow trespassers into his home. Between bad quick saves and being annihilated by blasters, Shaggy's only hope was to lure the Assaultron through the flame wall over and over to take it down, but thankfully his years of being the bait were paying off. But running low on supplies and more importantly food, Shaggy was getting desperate, but since the exit was locked, the only way out of this place was to somehow get the key. But how do you slip past a robot to get the key holder? Apparently you use a see-through stool. I kid you not. I tried to creep behind the counter and never even got close to surviving, but the stool for some reason broke its line of sight, giving Shaggy enough time to move into a safe spot. Now all he had to do was get the key, and honestly this came down to just being lucky. He had to somehow lure the gunner forward and then creep to a dark area of the room, then he had to antagonize the gunner to walk forward far enough to check his pockets. But after a couple of tries, Shaggy got the key and made a run for the exit. What should have been a 10-minute adventure turned into an hour and a half of pain, and Shaggy's psyche was starting to feel it.
With this equipment, I can put anyone in a trance-like, highly suggestible state. It's more like hypnosis. Anyway, you're going to become very, very brave, confident, fearless, heroic, powerful, unstoppable.
After returning from the doctors, Ellie had another follow-up for Shaggy, but this time, instead of needing a Scooby snack to be bribed, Shaggy just headed out on his own. Something had changed. Arriving at the Nakano household, it would appear that their daughter had run away to a far distant land. Apparently she had been swindled by whoever was on the other side of the radio, so whereas Shaggy normally would have tried to back out, this new and improved Shaggy took the Nakano's boat and sailed off for Far Harbor. Upon arriving, Shaggy confirmed that the missing girl Kasumi was indeed here somewhere, but before he could find out where she was, Far Harbor became under attack. After that brutal display of power, Shaggy was introduced to the old Longfellow, a guide for the area.
Here, Double Ugly, go buy yourself a new face.
If Kasumi was still alive, she would be at a place called Acadia. But to get there, Longfellow would have to guide Shaggy through the fog. But at this point, I'm not sure who's leading who. Now inside Acadia, Shaggy was greeted by Dima, a synth who just wanted to build a cool hangout spots for other synths. But considering these guys were luring confused teenagers to hang out with them, it all seemed kinda sus. But while talking to Kasumi, she disclosed that Dima was projecting tons of deaths in the future, Skynet style. So Shaggy got to investigating. While scoping out the place, he stumbled upon a meeting between Dima and some of the higher-ups. And honestly, these guys suck. Dima just wanted everyone to live together as homies, and all his higher-ups wanted to just kill off everyone. But whether one was right or wrong, Shaggy couldn't tell. But he discovered a way to find out. The children of Adam were holed up in a submarine base where Dima kept all of his Google search results. And if Shaggy could get his hands on those, maybe he could sort this mess out. After a walk over to the nucleus, Shaggy had a run-in with the bouncers at the door. But before Shaggy had to get his hands dirty, he was told that all he had to go do was drink a special juice. And at the sound of free drinks, I mean, who can resist? Only problem is, when he drank the juice, his awareness expanded to see all living things past and future. But at least there was a tour guide to guide him through the fog again. The ghost led Shaggy to an ambush with the writers of the new Velma series, and Shaggy had to show them who the real Top G was. After clearing out the hostiles and grabbing someone's mom, Shaggy returned to the nucleus and got to work, tearing through security guarding Dima's memories. Only to get to them and... Honestly, this is the best part of any Fallout game. Hell, this is the greatest moment in gaming history. I felt that by playing this, I had achieved a higher knowledge of all beings and could go on to... Yeah, no, I did not have a good time at all. But with Dima's memories gathered, a whole host of problems presented themselves. Dima had keys to a nuke that could wipe out the children of Adam and a turbine kill switch to eradicate all of Far Harbor. But Shaggy was more interested in the third option, Dima's medical facility. Super mutants were hiding out here, but the keyword was were. Taking an elevator down, Shaggy found an unmarked grave with the remains of Avery inside, the same woman that greeted him to Far Harbor. But how could this be? A holotape revealed that Dima scooped out Avery's brain and put it in a Roomba with legs. But when Shaggy came to confront him, instead of getting some long speech about the proper way to scoop out a brain, Dima instead offered Shaggy a choice. Instead of running around and telling on him, why not help him bring peace to the island? And at the sound of peace, something in Shaggy clicked. His powers recited and he had returned to normal. Peace seemed like the best option for everything. The plan was foolproof. The children of Adam hated Far Harbor and were wary of Dima. So, High Confessor Tectis needed to be removed and replaced for peace to take hold on the island. But since Shaggy had already infiltrated their ranks, he was able to get an up-close and personal meeting with the current leader. All Shaggy had to do was get Tectis to leave his position by either killing him or convincing him to leave. But since Shaggy had reverted back to his old ways, the pacifistic route was the only option. Luckily, the guy was pretty understanding and decided to help us out.
Gee, Scraps, no reason to freak out like a jerk and try to kill all humanity.
With Tectis out of the picture, Shaggy returned to Dima, who had already built a replacement for him. From here on out, Dima would be running Far Harbor as Avery, Acadia, and the Nucleus as Tectis. Kind of like a Dungeons & Dragons session where you're DMing a party that you built yourself, each with their own personality and goals, but to anyone looking from the outside, it just looks like you've lost your mind. But with the conflict of Far Harbor put to rest, Shaggy talked to Kasumi once more, who said that she had seen the error of her ways and was ready to return home to her parents in the Commonwealth. Another mystery solved, and Shaggy and Scooby could now have some well-deserved rest. For anyone that hasn't tried it, Maxwell's World is actually a really well done mod DLC. However, I did run into some problems with it and missed a lot of the side content. There's multiple different endings and I highly recommend it to anyone who wants to try something new for the future playthroughs. However, one word of advice I would give you is if you do plan on doing this, make multiple hard saves often, as I had to revert back and lose a lot of progress a couple of times. But if you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing as it helps the channel out a ton. Plus, if you have a suggestion for a challenge run you'd like to see, let me know in the comments below. I play all sorts of games, so no challenges off the table. I want to thank all of you that watched to this point, and as always, I have been Chris from Crisis Gaming, and I will see you on the next one.